sale of the Nigerian house in Tarrytown, New York. And Mr. Speaker, sir, at the time, you were at the public hearing and you said to them to read a section of the Act where they said that there shall be a council, and to which you asked them what is the address of the council. Mr. Speaker, of course, there was no such address. And Mr. Speaker, to a large extent, that put paid to that transaction. Mr. Speaker, today, the Nigerian house in Tarrytown still is the property of Nigeria, and the rest, as they say, is history. Mr. Speaker, but let me read from the Act. My colleagues have spoken a little generically to the issues, and of course, my colleague has also spoken to the need, the desirability for there to be some kind of roadmap to privatization. We recognize it's a good thing, we understand the expediency, we recognize that, of course, we always say in this House that government has no business in business, and we're all in agreement that we cannot necessarily fund most of these sectors from the budget. And so we seek outside of ourselves and outside of the budget provision to create these things so that they run more effectively, of course, in the interest of Nigerians. So the reason behind it is not in question. The reason that we require expertise is not in question. The reason that we absolve ourselves of the responsibility of running these things, because again, of the saying the government has no business in business, is not in question. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, all we ask, and all I believe the author of this motion seeks, is that it is done within the confines of the law. And all he's seeking is that we set up a council in line with the BP Act. And Mr. Speaker, let me read, with your imprimatur, of course, Mr. Speaker, why it is of the utmost import that this council is set up. Section 11 says, functions and powers of the council. And Mr. Speaker, with your imprimatur, could I read, please? Thank you very much. It says that the council shall determine the political, economic, and social objectives of privatization and commercialization of public enterprises. It says that they shall approve the policies on privatization and commercialization. It says they shall approve the guidelines and criteria for valuation of public enterprises for privatization and choice of strategic investors. It says, indeed, it shall approve public enterprise to be privatized or commercialized. It says it shall approve the legal and regulatory framework for the public enterprises to be privatized. It furthermore says that it shall determine whether the shares of a listed public enterprise should be made public or private or otherwise, and advise the government of the Federation accordingly what system to use. It says it shall approve the prices for shares or assets of the public enterprise to be offered for sale, and it shall review from time to time the socio-economic effects of the program of privatization and commercialization and decide on appropriate remedies. It furthermore says it shall appoint as and when necessary committees comprising persons from private and public sectors with requisite technical competence to advise on the privatization or commercialization of specific enterprises, and goes on and on and on. It furthermore says, ensure the process of the privatization exercise taking into account the need for balance and meaningful participation by Nigerians and foreigners in accordance with the relevant laws of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, sir, it also furthermore in the schedule goes on to say to us the companies that can be privatized and the extent to which they can. Some 40%, of course with railways, says partial privatization and so on and so forth, and I believe that that is in line with our local content laws. Mr. Speaker, having read this, it is evident that in spite of what it is we seek to do as a country, we have laws that drive these things. And so when my colleague says that we should act within the confines of the law, because at the end of the day, it is in the general interest of Nigerians that we as government must so do, because it is, after all, in the interest of Nigeria. Thank you.